Neighbourhood Centre Community Garden. My name is Tania, and today in this video I'm going to talk about cuttings and some basic information on how you can do your own cuttings at home. So when we're looking at cuttings, there are several different types of cuttings that we can do, and that depends on the type of plant. So around winter time, it's really good to do your hardwood cuttings, which are things like your roses and some of your citrus plants. Then we have what we call a semi-hardwood cutting, and then we have a soft tip cutting, which is like the nice fresh growth that you'll get on a rosemary bush or a lavender. And your semi-hardwood is a mix between sort of that harder growth, but not as hard as, say, your roses or your citrus. Then you've got plants which you can do cuttings for all year round. So things like your succulents are really good. Your geraniums are great. They can be done anytime and you'll have great success. Now there are some different ways to get them once you have your cutting. Some people will, some of the cuttings, you can put in a glass of water until it starts shooting roots, just changing that water every few days. It'll shoot some roots and then you can go and successfully plant your plant. Some plants like frangipanis are going to need to dry out for a few days before you replant them. So you take a cutting, let that cutting dry out, and then you can plant it. So when we talk about cuttings, it can be different for all the different types of plants. So my suggestion is, if you're looking at doing a specific plant, do a little bit of research into what works. And just remember, gardening is like a science experiment. Some things are going to work for you and some things aren't. Just keep trying. So I'm going to select where I'm going to take my cutting from. I'm looking for some nice growth, something that's healthy, because if you take a cutting of something that's diseased, your cutting will also be diseased. So look for a nice healthy growth. You're going to take it off the tip, and what I'm looking for is what we call nodes. So these are our nodes where our leaves come off. And this is where we're going to shoot the roots from. So the plant will grow roots from these little nodes. So I'm just going to cut below that one. What you want to do is try and take a nice clean cut, either with secateurs, scissors, knife, whatever you have. The less bruising by crushing it, the more chance you're going to have of getting some nice healthy roots growing. So I've got a little cutting here. I'm going to remove the bottom leaves off. So I'm just going to cut those leaves off. The plant's going to spend all its energy sending it to leaves, so that's why I cut them off, and I cut off any dead flowers. So I've got a little stick that looks like this. Now we can cut just under a node, pick a nice node. You can cut it straight or on an angle. So I'm going to cut mine on an angle away from the node. Now I can go and plant that straight away in soil because these are really hardy and great to grow. I can put it in a glass jar and wait. Now you can buy things for your cuttings like rooting hormones, and you can buy in a powder where you can dip your plant in there first, put it in water, put it in the powder, and then plant it in your cutting mix, which is a really light sandy sort of soil. So you can get specific cutting mixes to grow your cuttings in and plant it in. There's other things for your hardwood ones that you can buy and purchase that it's a rooting hormone, so that's going to encourage more roots. Another thing that you can use is honey. So you can get them, dip them in a little bit of honey and then plant it in your soil. But with these guys, you really don't need much. They're really hardy, great way to grow multiple plants at no extra cost for you. So cut off it, select a nice one, pop it in the ground, pop it in your pot and let it go. You can cover it with a plastic soft drink bottle with the lid off, make a little glass house, and that you can do that with all your cuttings, and that will encourage some really good root growth. So there you go, we've got a cutting ready to go. Now I'm going to have a look at taking a cutting from a rosemary plant. really going to have a good look at the plant. Check to see and find something that's really nice and healthy that I think looks good. So, and that one's got some, I'm not going to take from there, we've got a bit of, this one looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is select, I don't want the really soft and I don't want the really hard. So I'm going to kind of go somewhere in between and take my cutting. Doesn't need to be big, about this size. Again, I'm going to strip those bottom leaves off. Smells so good. So I've stripped the leaves off. I'm going to cut it at an angle. These are a little bit easier because there's so many leaves and so many nodes. You don't have to be so precise. And I've got a rosemary cutting. Again, I can dip that in some honey or some rooting powder and then put it in my cutting soil, just in a small tray, and cover it and let the roots grow. I'm not sure how these ones go in water. So if you've tried it in water, let me know. There you go. There's a rosemary cutting. Now we did have a question in relating to cuttings of jade plants. There are two different ways you can do your cuttings with jade plants. Unfortunately, I don't have one here to show you. But you can take your cutting and let it dry out for a little bit first and then plant it in your cutting mix. Or you can take a cutting and place it in a cup or jar of water and let it sprout roots out that way, then replant. Just be really careful and gentle with those roots because they're grown in water. They're not as hardy as a root that's grown in soil. So when you're planting them, take extra care that you don't just knock them off. Another good one for cuttings is succulents. Really hardy, really easy to do. You can just break the tip off, break a leaf off and repot it and it'll grow again. Your portulaca, your pig face is really good at doing that. We've taken several cuttings here. Just take a little tip off, plant it and it'll grow again. Lots of your succulents are the same. They'll either grow from cuttings or division. And division is when you get a lot of plants growing and you can pull away different plants. So things like your orchids you divide, irises, dianellas, sometimes aloe vera, you can pull those pups off and replant them. So there's lots of different ways you can get new plants from what you already have. So I've covered a little bit about cuttings today, not a great deal. Like I said, experiment, have a try and see what works for you. With your vegetables, it's collecting that seed, which is letting your plant, leaving one plant to go to seed. So you'll have a plant, let it flower, develop that seed, let that seed dry and then collect it and store it in an envelope and then it's ready for you to replant the next season. Just label it and put the date on so you know what's in there. So you can grow from your seed, you can grow from cuttings and you can divide. So lots of different ways we can grow from what we already have without having to go and spend more money to buy more plants. If you see a plant you like, someone's growing, just ask them if you can take a cutting. Most people are more than happy to share their garden with you. Don't forget, if you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section and we'll have a read and I'll do the best I can to answer your questions.